In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at Agent 3, Replit's new agent for building web applications. They just released this a few days ago, and there are a few features that caught my eye, specifically the Agents and Automations feature, which allows you to build out automations that can be triggered from Slack, from Telegram, or scheduled events. And I feel like this is so important, especially for anyone who's building for a business. It might be a small business or for an enterprise. These types of agents are going to be really, really important to getting your agents in the hands of your users. So this is going to be the focus of our video today. We're going to build a financial research agent that is based in Slack, so a Slack chatbot. We're going to use Replit to do this, but Replit Agent 3 has released a few things to keep in mind. So first and foremost here, this is the blog release, and I just want to go through some of the key things that they've mentioned here. So first and foremost, there's now app testing. So what this means is that as part of the agent run, you're going to have the ability to have autonomous tests that are run within the flow of the agent. This is so critical when you're thinking about building production grade applications. You want to have that testing and retesting that allows the agent to actually find any bugs and try to solve for those bugs. So this kind of autonomous testing is actually something that is going to help Agent 3 build more reliable applications. And like I said, the agents and automation feature, this is the one I'm going to be diving in today. So this gives you the ability to create agents that are triggered by Slack, Telegram, time-based events. Now, the other piece that they've talked about is the fact that the autonomous run obviously is very, very long. So Agent 2 was at 20 minutes, Agent 3 at 200 minutes, which is a significant improvement, remembering that we're starting from 2 minutes here, and this is a really huge step change, 10 times what the minimum or the maximum could be in terms of amount of time it takes to run. They have also added some new features around how the app creation works. So they now can estimate the time it's going to take to do a build. So for instance, it's going to take 20 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever it might be. And you can essentially choose what mode to follow. So you can either follow the build entire app, like if you want to build directly, or you want to start with a design. So there are a few options to follow. From what I've seen so far, this is supporting a lot of one-shot prompting where I provide a prompt and it's able to actually take that and build some sophisticated stuff. I think, obviously, as with any other building solution, you're going to also have it stop along the way, ask you for some inputs. There's going to be clarifications. You also need to provide as much context as possible. All right, so let's check it out. All right, so let's go ahead and build out our application. Now, to get started, we need to go to Agents and Automations. This is the new piece that has been added to Replit, and this allows you to build out applications that are triggered either by a Slack message, Telegram message, or based on a scheduled time event. They're also going to be adding webhook events, which means that you could trigger this agent from an external system. So let's go ahead and try out the Slack application, because this is going to be very common for a lot of enterprises as well. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and enter a prompt. So I went ahead and wrote this prompt out. It's a pretty simple prompt. Now, what I've seen so far from testing this out is that one-shot prompting typically works, but it takes a lot of time. It takes about 20 minutes. At the same time, I think it's always important to provide as much context as possible as you build out these applications. Now, what I have here is pretty much a very simple set of instructions. We're building a Slack agent. It's going to need to be able to answer questions for financial research. We're providing it with an MCP server that has access to a ton of tools. And, we're making sure that it understands that we just want to do we're making sure it understands that we are only going to be interacting with this agent via DM, and each interaction should be threaded to keep the research sessions clean. And that's pretty much it. And I'm just giving it a name. Now, the pretty interesting part of what's happening with this specific implementation is that Replit is going to do a lot of the hosting, a lot of the heavy lifting that comes with hosting a Slack application. All right, let's get started. Now, typically when it comes to using these agents, there's a plan mode and there is a build mode. The plan mode is where it kind of thinks through the series of tasks. In my last stream, we talked about deep agents, and deep agents are typically planning first, and they plan, a set of tasks out, and then they go ahead and execute it. And the planning is so important. It's very key because this is where it's determining exactly what it's going to be doing. So as we can see here, it's gone ahead and shown us, what the plan is going to look like. So it's going to be a Slack agent named this, integration is going to be this. We provided an MCP server for it to work with. It's going to be traded information. And you can also change the plan. If you feel like the plan that it has is not great, you can change it. And also, I think what's interesting here as well is that you can also get notified, because right now this is going to take about 20 minutes to build. It says it's going to take 20 minutes. And I'm good with that. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab some kombucha while it's running. If I need to step in while it's doing its thing, maybe it requires my help in any way, I'm going to unpause and continue to provide whatever inputs it needs. So I'm going to go ahead now and start the build, and I'm going to pause my recording. All right. So while it was running, it's asking me for an API key update. So it needs an API key for the agent. I'm just going to go ahead and confirm this. All right, so we've hit a milestone here where our agent has been built. As you can see here, we have a test environment for our agents. Now, agents are powered by Mastra. So Mastra is a framework for building agents in TypeScript. In a separate video, we're going to be diving into Mastra to see how it actually works. But basically, it just contains a bunch of different utilities for building applications, including the use of MCPs. So by default, Agent 3 is using Mastra to create these agents. And you can also see the graph showing exactly the flow. And this is sort of the automation side of things. So Slack is the trigger point. A message comes in from Slack, it gets sent to our financial agent, which is built in Mastra, and then the automation sends replies back as needed. All right, so now let's go test out our agent. Now, one thing you could see right up top here is the agent tools. So these are all the tools that are contained in our MCP server. So all of them, getting basic stock summary, SEC filings, and so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and ask a few questions to test out our agent before we go ahead and publish to Slack as Agent 3 is ready to go. All right, so let's test with a very simple one. Tell me the stock price for Apple and Salesforce. All right, so this is just a very simple one. Go to the, this is using Yahoo Finance, by the way, behind the scenes. So it's just going to go use Yahoo Finance. That's what most of the tools are built with. So as you can see here, here's the latest closing prices, Apple, Salesforce, and sources Y Finance, which is what we're using for a lot of our tools. I will drop a link to the tutorial showing you how to build this MCP server in case you have this type of use case that you want to build out. Okay, now let's go ahead and try to search for SEC filings. Now, this is a huge one for a lot of financial services folks. So if you're trying to do any types of analysis on a company, you probably want to go check out their SEC filing. Provide a summary of Apple's latest SEC filings. I'm going to add stream here, and we're going to go ahead and send it out. And this is going to go ahead and use our SEC filing tools to go pull SEC filings. So these are submissions that Apple as a company is making to the SEC about their revenue, about their numbers, all these types of things, and contains a lot of rich information which people might use for financial research. All right, so there you have it, our SEC filing. So that was a 10Q filed in Q3 of 2025. these were the results. Here's like the year-to-date revenue, balance sheet information, all that information. Now, it is insane to think that we've just one-shotted an agent using Agent 3. And I think this is where the capabilities come in, is Agent 3 does a lot of things behind the scenes to test, retest, debug problems as they come along the way, which gives it a little bit more quality than a typical run where it's doing less of that, where it's spending less time looking through areas to improve the code it's written. And this makes it the right type of agent building capabilities for you as you build out your agent or any types of automation. Can't wait to see what they do with other trigger points. Currently, as we mentioned before, it's Slack, it's Telegram, it's on schedule. They're going to be doing something for webhooks as well. So we'll see exactly how that pans out. All right, so I think our agent is great. I think it's time to go ahead and publish it to Slack. So let's go ahead and hit this Publish Now button and see exactly what happens. Okay, so here we need to connect to Slack. Now there are a few steps to follow here to do this. First off, we want to connect to Slack. So here we have this sort of Slack auth ticket client. So this is just a slash command for you to authenticate your Slack. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and I'm going to open Slackbot. So Slackbot basically is where you trigger that from. I'm just going to do this from my browser so it's easy for you to see. So right here you could see our Slackbot. All right, now from Slackbot, all I need to do is go ahead and send this slash command, hit that. And as you can see here, this is for authenticating using Slack CLI. So Slack CLI is a feature that was released by Slack a few years ago. It makes it much easier for you to handle things like building Slack applications completely through the command line, deploying Slack applications, managing Slack applications. So what Agent 3 is doing here is that once they get access to your Slack through the Slack CLI, it can essentially build out an entire Slack application for you and manage its deployment as well. This removes all the headache that you typically need to kind of go through when you're building a Slack application and you're offloading that to Agent 3. All right, let's go ahead and get this challenge code. I'm just going to copy it and go back in here. So sort of go to continue. We want to paste this code here so this kind of connects our Slack interface. I'm going to hit the continue button, and now we should actually see our Slack application. So I'm just going to go ahead and open this up. So this takes us to our Slack agent. So as you can see here, it's right over here. Now for this to actually work, we need to actually install the application. So this is a step that we need to do. So application has been created. This was created automatically. Typically, if you are aware of how Slack apps are created, you would see things like an app manifest that shows exactly what they've gone ahead and done. So this is basically the definition. So the Replit Slack agent enables seamless integration, blah, blah, blah. So basically they have this manifest. This manifest was generated by Agent 3, and that's how they're creating this particular agent. All right, now let's go ahead and install the application into our Slack workspace. So I'm going to go ahead and do this install. It does have one for posting stuff. I'm just going to use my Project MCP test channel here as a place for it to post information. I'm going to hit the allow button. And now we have our user auth token as well as our bot user token. Now this is what we need to pass back to the Replit configuration. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy it. And here, once we hit the continue button, it tells us, okay, so this is just telling us basically what we just did. So we're going to go through that. Now I'm going to paste the user auth token right here and hit continue. And that's it. Our Slack application has now been connected. I can't really emphasize how cool this is and how easy this has become to create a Slack application, because this would take you some time going through the setup, knowing what scopes to put in, all these types of things. And Replit is completely abstracting that away using this automation configuration. All right, so it says the Slack application is connected. Not sure why this fetching options is still spinning around, but let's go ahead and check out our Slack application to see how things are going. All right, so I'm just going to go here and look for the newly installed application. I believe it should be called Fin Agent Slack. So we have our message here. Now let's test it out and see if it actually works. So when I say, hi Slack agent, can you show me the stock prices for NVIDIA? Let's see. This should now provide a response. So you can see that we have this reaction that comes in right away to show that there is some sort of response. And this should go ahead and try to provide us with a response. And once the response is completed, it should show us this check mark showing that it has actually completed this. Now let's go back into the agent to see the logging here, so you can see basically the logging steps. I'm going to wrap this just to make it easier to see. So these are all the events that we're sending in, and it's trying to go solve our problem, I believe. So it's adding reaction to message. So this is the last thing it's done. Hasn't shown us anything suggesting it's calling the agent in the back end. So let's keep waiting to see. Okay, cool. So it sends us this reaction to say that it's completed, okay, as well as a reply. So here is the latest I have for NVIDIA. Close price this, volume is this, and this was the date, and this was Yahoo Finance. So now I can even do something like get me the latest SEC filing summary for Apple. So now we have a fully functional agent. Now, all right, let's go ahead and check our database actually just to see. So now we got all these. I want to just see the database to see if it's being populated. So you can see our production database here is showing messages. So we have all the messages in here that we're sending. So these were all the messages that were sent: user messages, assistant messages. There are no evals here. Are there threads? So there are 3 threads, and it's showing exactly the messages in the thread. So this is a fully implemented solution, right? You could go from getting that request from your boss to a fully functioning agent deployed in Slack, rolled out to your team to test things out. All right, I'm going to be testing more of the new functionality that has been released with Agent 3, with agents and automations, showing you how to build different types of automations. Until next time, do have a great one. If you find these videos amazing and informative or useful, consider dropping us a like and a subscribe. Also drop in the comments if you have any questions. Have a great rest of your day. Cheers.